The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Reaper Apparel offers a casual line of superb fit, finish, and comfort. We design for those who refuse to die slowly and choose to live untamed. For those who aren't afraid to face the dark, for the ones that thrive in it, and for those who can appreciate life through a grim lens. That's Reaper Apparel Company. Go to the link in the description of this episode, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. I have hats, I have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, water bottles, notebooks, you name it, I've got it. The description and the link for that will be in the description of this episode. Also, right now, if you use the promo code WELCOME, I will give you 5% off of your first purchase. That's the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Tactical Brotherhood, all American-made apparel, which helps support the Second Amendment. You can also find all this in the description of this episode with the link, Tactical Brotherhood. Part of every proceed does go to helping veterans, as it is a very good cause. All American-made products made right here in Minnesota. Go and check them out. Use the promo code PATRIOT15 to get 15% off your purchase. Now, let's start the show. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. This is, as always, your host, Mike Bono. I got a great guest for us today. He comes to us. He's the, I believe, spent some time at Kiernan University. We'll talk about all of his accolades and everything like that. Jim Kiernan joins the show. Jim, thanks for joining, man.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me on tonight.
Hey, not a problem at all. So, first off, you're a coach. Where are you currently coaching at right now?
Right now, I'm the offensive coordinator at Shaker Heights High School here in just outside of Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. So did you grow up in Cleveland, or is it?
No, I grew up, I'm a New York City kid through and through. So I grew up in New York City and played at a high school, St. Francis Prep, which, at the time was the largest Catholic high school in the country. Played for a guy, Vinny O'Connor, who I think he got 50 years in as the head coach there at St. Francis Prep.
Okay.
And got to walk the hallways and look at the pictures of alumni like Joe Torre, a guy a lot of football fans might know, Vince Lombardi. So all those guys, they were the predecessors to all of us in the 80s there, and they had come through. And so got a chance to be a part of a great high school football program. We had some good success there. Came out and got an opportunity to go up and play Division III up at St. Lawrence University up in Canton, New York. So about 10 miles from the Canadian border. So hardened me to the winters that eventually I might face in life. And, was up there and played free safety up there for 4 years. Had a really nice career. Made some great friendships and those type of things. And had been interning on Wall Street for 2 summers. And that's where I was headed. So I had some job offers and was all set to go. And all of a sudden, our defensive coordinator got his first head coaching job. And some guy said, you ought to get into coaching. You were a smart player. I don't know if that was telling me I wasn't an athletic player, but I guess I had a pretty good brain for the game that way. And so I started exploring it a little bit. Kind of kept it under wraps from my parents, because St. Lawrence is a private school, and being D3, they put a lot of money into that.
Yeah.
And I think they probably were excited that their son was getting ready to choose a Wall Street job. And, lo and behold, coach called me up when he got down to a school, Kentucky Wesleyan College, and said, would you come down here and, be a graduate assistant type, And I said, well, yeah, let me come down and check it out. And I thought to myself, boy, this will be awesome. I don't have to start the real world yet. I can kind of keep my life on hold and maybe be kind of still a college student. And, I love football and everything. And now here we are, 33 years later, something like that, and still coaching. And for 30 years coached at the college level. And then 2 years ago decided it was time to retire. So I did that for about a year and a half down in Fort Lauderdale on the beach. And my wife said, hey, we need to go back up north to where I'm from in the Cleveland area to help out my mom and dad as they're older. I said, I'm bored. I'm not even 55 yet. Let's go back and do a little coaching. And was lucky enough, Alex Nicholson, had a job open here at Shaker Heights. And Colleen's uncle, Greg Knackley, was a longtime head coach and assistant coach in the Cleveland area high school. So he started reaching out to people, and here we are today. So just got through my first spring at doing the high school thing that way, and now finding out how much harder the high school coaches work in the summer than you did at college, and getting ready to go into the first fall.
Yeah, I definitely get that too as well. My son's starting high school football himself here in Central Ohio, and I told the head coach, like, look, I don't have a lot of time, but I'll help out with the team. I've played football for 7 years, and I always said I'd make a better coach than I did a player. So yeah, I'll definitely help out. And so I was like, it's summer, we probably won't be that busy. Like, no, it's busy time. Like, they're asking, like, can you help out today?
Summer's a busy time to get. It's changed a lot from back when I played in the '80s, and even though you're involved in it and you're at the college level and you're doing your camps and everything. I mean, I think particularly over the last 15 years, everybody's seen their summer get cut into quite a bit. Whether it be high school or college, but it's on a different calendar. And so this is a time of year in high school where the kids don't have their classes, and you can do a lot of things. And now the colleges have opened up with all the different camps, whether it be a recruiting camp or a team camp or all these 7-on-7s. So there's always something going on for the kids other than just working out. And we all know that sports have become a year-round thing in terms of training. So they're all in the weight room and running and getting ready. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where it started. We're finally starting to get into some drills and all that. And I'll tell you this: the coach was a little hesitant to let me help out on the staff because my son plays and everything like that. I was like, I can promise you, I will be harder on him than I will anybody else on this team. I can guarantee that for you for sure. There's not going to be a bit of favoritism coming my way.
But it's such a great experience. I mean, I worked for a guy for a lot of years. In fact, the guy that gave me my first job, Randy Ari, and he coached all three of his sons at the collegiate level. And there are some challenges, obviously, and I think sometimes the challenges are more on the kid than they are on the dad, so to speak, that way. But when you look at them after games, and you can just see that every once in a while you catch them at practice, and his sons all played opposite the other side of the ball than him, so they were all with me on offense. And every once in a while you catch them peeking over and seeing how they're doing and stuff. And I think as he reflects back on it, he wouldn't have changed a thing. So it really is a special thing to be able to go out and do that.
Yeah, and I don't get to coach my son that much because he is a lineman, and I'm more with the skill guys and everything like that, just helping out where I can. But you're right. Every now and again, I catch myself peeking over my shoulder at what he's doing. So
and you should.
Yeah,
and you should. That's what this is about.
And then we get in the truck, and he just goes, "All right, what did I do wrong today?" Like that's it's like we'll talk about that here. Don't worry, we're gonna get into that for sure. But yeah, it's great to be able to see him on the field because I didn't get to help out as much as I would have liked to, in pee-wees and junior high ball and growing up that way with him. But it is rewarding to be on the field with him because he could tell me till he's blue in the face how he did at practice, but he's a 14-year-old. Of course, he did great. Yeah,
or they don't want to talk about it when they get home. They got other things that are on the top of their mind and stuff.
Absolutely.
But it's great, and as we know as adults, and we go back and we have the wisdom of years under our belt, that it goes fast.
Yeah.
And so when you get an opportunity to be able to be around them in that type of setting, and whether it's a year or 4 years, it really is something that, and while we don't always think they appreciate it as much, as they get to be our age, they look back, and I think they will tell you those were some of the best times. So keep it going, man. It's a great thing.
Absolutely. And, it's nice for me, being a comedian myself, typically I'm on the road a good bit. So, I don't get to see, him as much as I would like to. So it's kind of our me time now is, being at practice and, and it's fun that way. You know what I mean? And I really enjoy it. And I enjoy the game of football in general. I'm always, I drive my wife crazy on Sundays and
Don't we all?
She's a sports fan to herself in her own right, but it's always just like, okay, we watched the 1 o'clock game. Now it's the 4 o'clock game. She's like, do we really have to watch? Then I was like, well, we already watched 2 games. What's one more? So.
Well, when I was retired, when you're in the game, you don't always get that opportunity because you're in season. And you might be scouting a high school guy, then you got your own game, and then maybe you catch a little bit of the Monday night game when you come home, and then you watch the all 22 stuff and the off season stuff. And so she, when I retired, she was like, "Oh, this is going to be nice. You can watch the game together and all that stuff." And all of a sudden, she's looking at on Friday night. There's two iPads going with one broadcasting onto a TV screen of former players that are high school coaches now that you're watching that game. And Saturday, now you got the same setup going, and then all of a sudden Sunday comes and it's the same thing. And now that you got Thursday and Monday, she's like, "Hey, wait a minute, now this is not
not what I signed up
for, is it?" I didn't realize you enjoy watching it that much. That's what I did for 30 years. That's all I did.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about your time at Gannon University. How were you able to take that program from a 1-10 in your first year to having multiple winning seasons? What was kind of the mindset you had going into that?
I think the thing was, I was coming from Saginaw Valley State, and Randy Ario, I mentioned, was the head coach there, and we'd had a tremendous amount of success there. And so I had a great mentor. Before I headed over there and everything in terms of, establishing what we call today culture of the program. I don't know if we used that language, back then, but that was what it was. And, so when you come into those situations, patience is a huge piece of it. I mean, and none of us have it. And, but at the same point in time, as the guy who's overseeing the whole thing, you've got to have some patience because it's just not going to happen overnight. I mean, they make movies about the times it does happen overnight, but, they don't make a lot of movies about it. So therefore it doesn't happen that much. And I think what it was we had a very good staff over there. We had a really good AD when I started over there. Bill Elias, was a former college coach, and so he understood and was a guy I could walk in the office and talk to and get advice from, that way. And then I think what we realized, and the biggest thing that I think we all go through when we get in the seat of being the head coach is, recruiting the right kid, and the right kid is the right fit, and I think sometimes. We'll all be guilty of, we watch the film and, we want talent, but it takes more than talent to win a championship. And so, and to have a championship player. And so, as you go through it is, looking at all those other qualities that are going to help your program grow and making sure that the kids you bring into your program have a role. And not all those roles are going to be all Americans. And they're not all going to be, first team all conference kids. And so, realizing you've got to find the right fits. And the right fit is more important than the talent at some point in terms of getting it turned around. And turned around, I guess, is, starting to win some games and be competitive. And then, once you get to that point, now I think, you've got some leaders in your program. You've got a bit of a culture established. And now you can start to, continue to try to build the talent base. And obviously, winning attracts kids. And, so I think that's the big thing is once people see the direction in your program, now they'll start to say, okay, this is something I'll look at. And once they look at it, then, you got to work a little harder when you're not at the top of the mountain type of thing. And you got to get creative in your recruiting and do the little extras and, those things. But, I think the biggest thing was we got good kids. And, And some of those kids happen to be some good football players, and some of them achieved probably beyond their talent because of their character and stuff like that. And that got the ball rolling. And then when I stepped down there, and our defensive coordinator took over, and he kept it going for a little bit. So, yeah, great time. I mean, there were some days it didn't always feel great, and it wasn't always easy. It was a lot of hours because of where it was at when you arrived, but a great experience. And, it's about people. I mean, it really is. There was never one guy that did it. There was never one player that did it. It was just a group of people just getting through it and going day by day with it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a little bit of this firsthand because I played football in high school, but I was also a swimmer. Swimming was my better sport that I was better at, and earned a scholarship in swimming to Bethany College. And I remember we were just having it was like flag football intramurals or whatever, and I would always look over, and the football coaches were there, trying to recruit from within the college. Did you have any of that at yours? Did you try to go within, or were you looking outside?
I think with us being at scholarship level, there was, we were able to go out and attract kids, and we had a fit at Kiernan. I mean, we had some good academic programs, and we were a private school. And and then we had a Catholic affiliation, and as we all know, there's a lot of good schools that are Catholic schools that play football in the United States, and so it branched us out to being more of a across the country recruiting than necessarily backyard recruiting. And just looking for the fits, because again, it goes back to that is what is the type of kid that wants to come to school there and be there for 4 years, and I think that's the big thing is that, when they're 18, they're good players. You recruit the potential, but they don't get there till they're 20, 21, 22. And if you can't get them to 20, 21, 22, you kind of wasted some recruiting time. You know what I mean? And you wasted some effort that way. And so I think that was the big thing, is making sure, hey, bring in the kids that can be there, till they're 20. And when they're 20, they make better decisions in every part of their life, and they're also bigger, faster, and stronger. And I think that's where we did a pretty good job of finding those type of kids that would be your core kids. And you're going to have some freshmen that come in and start and contribute and those type of things. But the core of your program has got to be those type of kids.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember Coach Upton coming up to me after an intramural game, and he was like, "Man, you got a hell of an arm. Like, what? Did you ever think about playing football in college?" I was like, I played a little bit, but I played receiver in high school, but I'm on a swimming scholarship here, and I'm not trying to mess that up any as much as I would love to play football. It's just not going to be in the cards. And, I'm still close with Coach Upton today. I mean, he was on the show, a former guest of the show, and, we talk all the time, too, as well. But I still remember that day, my freshman year, like it was yesterday, him coming up and asking me, and it's a good memory, because it's like I never thought I was good enough to play in college, and he was looking for that right fit too as well. He could see just in intramural. I'm a very competitive person as it is in general. I don't care if it's football or if we're playing Go Fish. I'm a competitive person and I want to win, and that's what he was looking for. He wasn't necessarily looking for those All-Americans to come to a D3 school, private liberal arts college, you know what I mean, to play football. It was, who's going to help my program in the long run?
Yep. And I think the other thing was, if you look at the timing in the years I was there, that was about the time that you started seeing, and again, I think that it's something that is taken away from it, because you're seeing it at the high school level now, is, where getting kids that were multiple sport athletes was starting to get, I don't want to say frowned upon, but it was, there was people that didn't see the value in it anymore. And, and I think that, and particularly as you get into the scholarship level and stuff like that, sometimes, that becomes a bit of a thing too for a kid, is, hey, if I'm giving you money, I expect you to perform. And if you're spending time over with this other program and you're not developing yourself here, what are we doing? But at the same point in time, I think that, prior to that, we had a number of kids that were two-sport athletes at Division II. I mean, when we were at Saginaw, we were one of the best D2 programs in the country, and we had a baseball and a track guy, and they both started in track and baseball, and were fabulous players, and they were starters on a top 10 team, and top 5 team a couple of years. So I mean, I think that is doable, but I think it takes the right kid as well, because there is a lot that goes into it, and I think the biggest thing that sometimes us as coaches forget is the right kid, and also us as coaches understanding we don't coach the same way as his other coach does. And so he's got to bounce back and forth between our style of coaching and the other coaches, and sometimes, we say it's hard on the kid, but do we look at ourselves and say, what are we doing to help that kid with that? And I think maybe that's been lost a little bit because of the fact that you don't have coaches anymore that are coaching multiple sports. I mean, I can remember when I was going to college, I think every assistant was coaching another sport. I mean, they were all coaching other sports, lacrosse, baseball, track. I mean, they were all doing different things. So, you were moving, you always had one of the coaches that was with you almost the whole year. It may not have been your position coach, right, but at least with the program. And so if you had a little trouble with that transition into the other sport with that head coach, there was a guy you could go to. I mean, that doesn't exist anymore at the college level. And even at the high school level now. I mean, you're noticing that there's very, at the bigger high schools, the bigger number of high schools, it isn't happening anymore. Still at the smaller schools, I think it is but you're not seeing it as much at the bigger schools anymore. So, and there's some pluses and minuses to everything that goes on as we evolve.
Right.
What are we doing now as we get older? The same thing our parents were saying when we were younger, but, there are some positives, but I do think that we've gotten away from something that is a good thing, particularly at the younger levels, is that, letting these guys, go out and compete and find out where they're at, let them develop. And then, when they get to college, let them, figure it out, because at that point they've been recruited. And if somebody's recruiting you, then you probably do have the talent to, have a chance to have some success in college. So.
Yeah, I see it back at my old high school because my nephews are there now, and I back in West Virginia, and it's a medium-sized school now. It was a pretty large high school, Brooke High School in West Virginia, where I grew up, and but now it's kind of that middle of the road, medium-sized school, and you don't see a lot of two-sport athletes. Like my nephews, they consider them anomalies because they play football and basketball. And my oldest nephew runs track too as well. He's a thrower in track, so he's a 3-sport athlete at the high school level, and he's going to be a senior this year too as well, which really makes me feel old knowing that he's already a senior. But people look at him like, how do you do it? Plus, you're working too as well. You're still having that part-time job to kind of support yourself too as well, and you're old enough to do that. And it's just I remember being all right, well, I played football, I swam, I was in this, I was in that. I mean, I was doing a lot.
I was never home.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be home. And I had 2 great parents, but I never wanted to be home.
Right. And it was to the point where, my parents would look at me and be like, so are you ever going to come home? And I was like, well, I come, you see me at night, that's about
that's about when you get to see me. You can see me after the games and at night. My high school experience was, where we were at, it was mandated you play a second sport. And if you didn't play a second sport, you weren't playing.
Wow.
I mean, we had around 250 kids try out let's say 200 kids try out for the freshman football team. So the numbers were never a problem back then for the school, in high school. And the rule was you play another sport and we'll keep the weight room open for you. And then you can hop on the bus and, take the bus home. You took public transportation, and so, I mean, it was, in New York City, that's how you got around. And so that's what you did. And, I often wonder how would that go over today, with a coach saying, hey, everybody's got to play another sport, And,
I don't.
When the kids do it, they have fun. They really do.
Yeah.
I mean, getting them to do it sometimes isn't the easiest, but when they do it, they have fun, but, different times. So.
Yeah, it's rare to see that, 2-sport athlete. And I remember, getting my letter for swimming and then getting my letter for football. And people are like, wait, you have 2 letters? It's like, yeah, that's the normal thing around here now. There's not a lot of people that don't have two letters in high school, and that was an accomplishment for me. That's what I was looking to do. Was to be that letterman in two sports, and obviously, if it weren't for a couple of injuries, I'd probably still be swimming to this day in my 30s. That's I love the pool and I love the water, but it's just that shoulders aren't what they used to be. That's it.
Yep. Oh yeah. We all get old.
Absolutely. So, coaching for as long as you have to have a couple of games that was just like the greatest games that you've ever kind of coached in or got to be a part of. So take us through a little bit of a couple of your favorite games to coach in.
I mean, I think the one that is going to be at the top of the list is, I think it was our second or third year at Saginaw Valley, and we're in the playoffs, and we're playing IUP. So, Coach Signetti there has got the boys ready to go, and they come up, and they're ranked ahead of us, and they come up to Saginaw, Michigan, and, we were a little bit young, but, still had some talent. Probably were playing a little bit above ourselves that way in terms of the talent was there, but not the experience. And I think we got down 28 or 35-7 at halftime. And it was a home game, so you're going on the field at halftime and you're going, okay, how do we, not make this an embarrassment? I don't even know. I mean, I'd like to say, we went in the locker room and had all these great ideas and came out at halftime and that's how we won it. But truthfully, you're going into halftime going, oh my gosh, this team is good. And we ended up coming back and winning the game. And I know at the time it was the biggest comeback in a playoff game in college football, and I think it still is today. It may have changed a little bit. And the guy that was the quarterback is one that all the football fans will know, a guy by the name of Matt LaFleur.
Yeah.
So Matt was the quarterback there. And the part about it that's so unique, there's two great pieces of it, and it speaks to Matt as a competitor and why he's where he's at today, is in part of the comeback where they're driving down the field and one of our guys on defense picks the ball off in the end zone and takes it out.
Oh.
And Matt's screaming on the sideline, go down, go down. And then he gets tackled on the 2-yard line and Matt's not very happy. And the head coach turns and says, I don't want to hear that from you. Just go out there and go 98 yards for a touchdown. About 2.5 minutes later, he went 98 yards for the touchdown. And we go for 2. And there is almost nothing left on the clock. And the ball gets fumbled. And their nose guard picks it up. And it was one of those plays where, it was a run play, so everybody was going forward.
Right.
And the handoff happened in the back. The fumble happened in the backfield with the ball carrier. And Matt took off and caught the guy on the opposite 30. Game over. And, if that guy scores, they go up by 1. So, playoff football, I think that one has to go at the top. And then, you go back to the Gannon experience. And I think it was year 2, maybe year 2 or year 3. We were over playing Bloomsburg. And Danny Hale, another legend in Division II football, Pennsylvania football, and they were knocking on the door to go to another playoff game. And, here we come in, and we'd had a little success that year. And we're starting to get close to turning the corner and everything, but we got to go there. The old PSAC, you had the crossover game and everything at the end. And we went there, and we beat them. And I'll never forget, we beat them by 3 points or whatever. And it was a back and forth game and not a high scoring game, but just, good football. And I looked down in the corner of the end zone and there's my dad and my college coach. And the two of them are beaming and smiling. And there was a picture in my office. I still have it somewhere here, and you look out on the field and kids are throwing their helmets and they're jumping up and down. You'd have thought we just won the national championship. And we weren't even going to go to the playoffs, but we knocked them out of the playoffs type of thing. You know what I mean? Or knocked them down. I think we knocked them out, but knocked them out. And it was the first time they'd ever beat a ranked team there. But the picture that somebody got of the kids on the field and guys, it's like, hey, what a game. I think we got to 6-4 or whatever, 6-5, whatever it was. We just turned the corner 500. But to those kids, it was like we had won the Super Bowl. And then you look down and you see, your father and your college coach, down in the end zone. And my college coach's son was playing for me. So, again, those two people had there are 2 children watching the game. So I would have to say that those 2 games have to go to the top of the memory. And then probably the last one, I was down at Alabama A&M with one of the guys you had on here before that connected us, Ernest Wilson. Ernest and I were down at Alabama A&M, and I had just come from we were Kentucky Wesleyan D2, and now we go to Alabama A&M. They're in the SWAC, and the first game is the Labor Day Classic down in Birmingham. And you go out onto that legendary field, and there's 70,000 people screaming, and it's packed because it's a classic game. And you look around in the stadium, and you go, "Oh my gosh!" For a guy that played D3 and was coaching at D2, the moment you walk in there for opening kickoff, and it's so loud that the guys can't even hear you on the sideline. I think that was a pretty cool experience. And I would imagine for a lot of kids, when they get into those type of stadiums and stuff like that, the first time, that's a pretty cool experience to look around and be like, wow, this is pretty loud.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those are awesome. Just those 3 in general. I mean, I still, again, to this day, my senior year of football, we had been 5-5 for like a decade, my high school. And missing the playoffs because we were only 500. And my senior year, it was down to the last game. We were 5-4, and it was either, okay, are we going to go 5-5 again and finish mediocre, or are we going to go 6-4 and have a chance to squeak into the playoffs? And I remember the PA announcer in the start of the fourth quarter announcing that a game that had gotten over before ours, and we needed this team to lose, and we needed to win. Well, that team lost, and they announced that at the start of the fourth quarter. And it's like, why? At first, it's like, why would you do that? Why would you announce that during the game over the PA? Like, that's not going to help us. But
that's for the fans.
Yeah, but like you said, we ended up winning that game, going 6-4, and like you said, you would have thought we had just won the state championship game. Like, everybody ripping their helmets off, fans rushing the field, knowing that we made a playoff game.
Yep.
For the first time in 10 years, and that was just. It was a moment that sticks with me. Everybody meeting at center field, and just all the fans rushing the field, and like you said, you're like, it's something that sticks with me to this day.
I mean, those memories are, and I think a lot of times that we take them for granted in the moment, and then when we get a chance to look back and just realize just how unique and how cool, I mean, for lack of a better word, that those experiences really were. I mean, they really were. And when you look around and I think from a coaching standpoint, it gives you a really good perspective of, what you're really doing and why you're doing it and why you're out there and stuff like that, is when you can look and you can see that, in a game like that, the Bloomsburg game, is that, to those kids, it meant so much. And, sometimes we forget, we're so caught up in the X's and O's and the taking care of business off the field and technique and recruiting and everything else, that we forget there's the reason why, we're really playing the game. Yeah. And whether it's a meaningless game or a big game, to have the opportunity to do something that is unique. I mean, I think that's what we're all trying to do at some point or another in our lives. And, in sports, it comes in those type of victories. In life, it comes with marriage and children and all that fun stuff and everything. But in sports, it's when you finally get over the hump. And I think that's the interesting thing now that I think about it with those 2 stories, is those were the games that got us over the hump. You know what I mean? You talk about building and when did you know, or how do you see, and when do you say, okay, I think we're there. It's those type of games where, you go in and it doesn't look like you should win. And then you're in the game and it's tight or you're not winning. And then all of a sudden, somehow, some way, a group of guys figures it out. And it is the kids. I mean, I'm sure we made a play call or 2 that wasn't half bad. But at the end of the day, it was those kids. And to see how they, the confidence it gives them is just, I think it puts it in perspective for all of us that are coaching.
Yeah, and like I said, it's what I'm trying to get through to my stubborn teenage son now, that trust me, I know you don't understand that sports is going to help you down the road.
Oh, yeah.
What you're learning here will translate to a job or a career or anything that you do, a relationship, whatever it is. And, it's, and, but he's a stubborn 14-year-old, so whatever dad says is wrong.
And we all were.
So, yeah.
You know,
I remember being that way, so I get it.
I like I said, I worked with this guy, Randy R. I was his OC at 4 different colleges, and I played for him. He was the defensive coordinator, and I played for him. He was my position coach. And so from the time I was in college till almost the time I retired, I had been with him at 4 different places. That's a lot of years.
Yeah.
That's a lot of years in. And when you get to hear the same thing for that many years, and then you get to reflect on what you were taking from it at 18, 19, 20, and what you're taking away from it at 45, 47, 48, 49, it's a pretty cool thing, because you really do, because it's the same message. Randy was an old school guy, so the message didn't change a whole heck of a lot over the time. And I can remember him saying those same words to me at 18, and me looking at him going, "What are you talking about?" It's no different than your son looks at you and goes, what are you talking about, Dad? I got PlayStation to go to right now.
Yep.
All that stuff. And, at our age, we had basketball or whatever we were doing to go to.
Yep.
And we didn't get it. And then all of a sudden, somewhere in your 20s and 30s for some, all of a sudden the light bulb goes off, and all those things that, as coaches, we couldn't figure out why they can't understand that we're just trying to help not make the mistakes we made, go off. And then the next thing you know, it makes a difference for a guy.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's going to make a difference, because what you go through in sports is life. It's a microcosm. And I think that's the greatest thing, and not taking away from education in any way, shape, or form. But I don't think you can get it in the classroom. I don't think you can. I just don't think as children we can process or want to process when our parents are telling it to us.
Yeah.
Our friends certainly don't have the wisdom to tell us. Every once in a while we find that friend that might, but they're too young. And but when we do, and you see it, that it makes an impact in lives, and it makes an impact not just while they're playing for you, not just when they start to be done, but it's making an impact through their whole life. It's still making an impact on me, and I'm 55. So there's still times where things happen, things come up, and you reflect on, what you got told or what you did, back then, and you draw from it, and it helps get you through it, or it helps you make a better decision.
Yeah.
And it can be simple, and it could be very important, but it does impact.
Yeah, I'll say this, and then we're going to need to get down near the end, because we're running down near the end of the episode. But there's one thing that all I have to tell him, and I know it was taught to me at a young age, and you mentioned him, Vince Lombardi. I run on what's called Lombardi time. Early is on time is late. If you're late, you shouldn't even bother showing up. And it's to the point now that, my son, and like when we're leaving for practice, he's like, we're so early. I was just like, what's the Bonaventura rule? What's the Bona rule? And he rolls his eyes, but he says it back verbatim. Early is on time is late. If you're late, you shouldn't even bother showing. And he has that smart aleck tone to him too as well. But I know, because he sees it too now. It's summertime, and he asks me all the time, you don't have to be at work until 9. It's a 30-minute drive for you, and it's 7:45, and you're leaving for work already. I was like, again, what's the rule? Early is on time. And he's like, I get it, but I was like, trust me, you'll thank me when you're older. I promise you, you will thank me when you're older.
And all those lessons come with us throughout our entire lifetime. They really do. They really, really do.
Absolutely. And like I said, we are running down near the end of the episode here, Jim, but I do give every guest this opportunity at the end of every show. So if there's anything you want to get out there, whether it's a good message or to help promote for and recruit for your school and your sports program and everything like that, I'm going to give you about a minute, and the floor is yours, my man.
Yeah, no, I just think that, I'm very fortunate. I've gotten to make a livelihood out of doing something I love, that I have a passion for. And the best part of it is I get to reflect back and see that, those long days made an impact in some people's lives. And I think the more we can get people involved in sports and extracurricular activities, you look at mental health nowadays with kids, get them involved, encourage them, get out there and be supportive of them doing it. And, it's a little tougher today in the world than it was for us. But, whether they're in the band or they're playing football, get them involved in things and get yourself as a parent involved in things, because the impact that it's going to have on you and the memories that it's going to give you are going to come back to you tenfold. And to all the players that played for me and all the coaches that gave me an opportunity, you've given me a great, great life. And I can't thank you enough for it. And to any of you guys that are listening out there, a heartfelt thank you for all those years and all the things you've given me.
I got to tell you there, Coach, I love it when there's a good message at the end of the show. And I almost hate that I got to do sponsorship reads at this point in time, because we love to end on that note. But I do got to get in sponsorship reads here. So everybody, please go and peep the sponsors that you heard at the beginning of the episode. That is Tactical Brotherhood. Promo code Patriot15 will get you 15% off of your purchase. Part of every proceed goes to helping veterans, so it's a good cause to help them and help yourself too as well. Also, Reaper Apparel, Mike Bono promo code, and get yourself 10% off of that. We do have two new sponsors. W Energy. Energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, podcasters alike, by gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. There's no crash. There's no jittery feeling afterwards. This has actually replaced my morning coffee and my morning monster that I would have to get through my day. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off of that. And one of my favorite sponsors to date now, new sponsor, Shankits Golf. I am wearing one of their hats here today. It is golf apparel made for the everyday golfer that's going to go out and have fun. We might not shoot a 6 under par. We probably are going to shoot a 6 over par. But they're going to give us the gear to rock it on and off the course. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off of that too as well. That is going to do it for this week's episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. Again, I want to thank my guest, Jim Kiernan, for joining the show. It was a lot of fun to talk to you, a lot of great insight and everything like that, and some good messages along the way that I hope everyone can take from. As always, if you enjoyed the show, be a friend, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell them anyways. They might like it just because you didn't. That's going to do it for me, and I will see y'all next week. The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by W Energy. Energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. For gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. Go to the link in the description where you can find the best energy drinks out there. Less caffeine than a cup of coffee. Also, no jitters and no crash afterwards. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my favorite sponsor of the show, and that is Shankit Golf. Golf apparel made for the everyday golfer. We might not go out and shoot a 6 under par. We're probably going to shoot a 6 over par, but this is going to give us the gear that's going to help us rock it on and off of the course. Go to the link in the bio, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get yourself 10% off there as well.